Hello, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Some breaking news to cover as the Hong Kong fire has some new updates. But I thought I'd start with this image because it honestly was just very shocking for me to see this. um, yeah, like I don't know. For some reason, this image has actually hit me pretty hard. Just the man, the way the way he's just like could do anything. It's pretty crazy. But thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us today. So let's talk about what happened with this because it's actually there's a lot of things wrong with this whole thing. And you guessed it, there's the Chinese government is involved in this as well. So where do we even begin? I think maybe for anybody that's not caught up with the situation, it's a little bit like, how would you say, there's negligence. There is also a lot of corruption involved. So maybe we can start with some videos. Let's see. Oh, by the way, this is the current situation. So the fire has been put out after 17 hours finally, but it was 8 buildings and they've been essentially burning for the last 17 hours. Considering the fact that the scaffolding, like some of you have already mentioned, it's made of bamboo. It's there's no anti-fire protections or anti-fire retardant measures in place. So this is the current situation, right? And then we're gonna kind of work our way backwards. That's a real picture. Yeah, that's a real picture. That's the crazy part. The real picture. So yeah, I'm kind of speechless. Dude, you guys just stop with the fire emoji. Viewers from Hong Kong here. Oh, if you are from Hong Kong, well, I'm very sorry for what's happening there. Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw some of the image or the videos, but it literally looks like the scene from an apocalyptic movie. Like, look at this. This is earlier from well, it would have been yesterday afternoon, as the fire was engulfing the entire 8 buildings. Like this is like a scene from hell. Like, look at this. It's absolutely crazy. And it's 8 buildings because they're all next to each other, and it's a residential area that needs a complete renovation. And so basically, they were working on this whole thing together. Okay, now let's actually talk about what happened. So, this is from Fragile Bard. I believe he's a dissident from Hong Kong. He says a maintenance project at Hong Folk Estate in Taipo, Hong Kong, is suspected of causing a severe fire due to shoddy workmanship, aka tofu drag construction, and the use of substandard materials. As of the early morning of November 27th, the fire has resulted in at least 44 deaths, 62 injuries, and an additional 279 people missing. Following the incident, Hong Kong police immediately deployed riot officers to the scene to maintain order, which is very typical of the now considered mainland Chinese style governance, which is to deploy those stability factors, right? 1 year before the incident, an engineer had already taken samples for testing and exposed that the construction materials were highly flammable. However, the relevant authorities responded by stating that the fire risk for the project was relatively low and dismissed the concerns. The project is also suspected of not having obtained the consent of the majority of the state's owners, and the owners had attempted to convene a special residence meeting and replace the management committee but failed to stop the project. Ultimately, the project was quoted at 330 million Hong Kong dollars, with the cost divided equally amongst all residents. So the residents had to pay for this, by the way. They weren't they were essentially brute forced into accepting this. They had to pay for the entire renovation. Wong Pu Kyo, the then advisor to the owners corporation of Hong Folk Estate and a pro-Beijing district councillor, even accused those opposing the project of being troublemakers instigated by the pro-democracy camp. At the 2021 owners' meetings, allegations of election fraud emerged, with some owners authorizing Wang Pukui to vote on their behalf without their consent, and even a larger number of owner representatives opposing the project being prevented from entering the venue to vote. So it was a huge issue back then when this project first came to light for the renovation. And just some of the screenshots, okay? They basically were trying to force this onto the residents for one, but also at the same time establish this infrastructure of corruption. And I think this is probably the most representative of how Hong Kong has evolved for the worse. As you can see, they have people like these cops are now there to maintain stability. Um, and as I found from a Facebook post, which let me pull it up here. Where is it? This one. Okay. So from this Facebook post, which it's a little small, so let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on it. Okay. So we have well, this does nothing apparently. We have a English version in the middle there. It's a little small, so read it out to you guys. It says, if you have any questions or want to know the truth, please inquire with the government department. The following is the Labor Department's explanation of the scaffolding net to me. Blah, 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 blah. See more. In following up to your email to the Labor Department on 6th, by the way, this is last year. This is September 16th last year. So 2 months, a year and 2 months before this tragedy happened. And here's the response for the following. So it says, thank you for providing information to the Labor Department about the major repair works of Wangfu Court Estate in Taipo. The Labor Department was informed of the above maintenance work site carried out by Hongyi Construction Engineering Limited in late July this year and has been following up on the safety of the work at the site. The function of the protective curtain shaft net on the scaffolding is to limit the scope of the object's armpit and protect people from the material, tools, and waste under the according to the existing safety regulations applicable to construction sites enforced by the Labor Department. There is no fire retardant standard for scaffolding nets or any material. In addition, according to our staff's inspection of the site, the repair work do not require thermal work on bamboo scaffolding, use of open fire or flammable materials. The suitable fire extinguishing facilities are also provided in the site. As a result, the risk of fire in shed nets is relatively low. The department has also reminded the contractors concerned that they must take good fire prevention measures in the construction site to prevent fire. So this is the Hong Kong Labor Department telling an engineer last year in an email that the risk of fire is low. There's no need for additional fireproof prevention procedures because, well, simply nobody's going to be working with open flames. Well, as it turns out, if I can find the video, people were working with open flames. They found workers literally smoking inside the scaffolding that's made of bamboos. So there's literal cigarette fire lit. This is a worker like spending his break smoking, and then the residents found out. Obviously, they're really mad about this, and they're telling them to stop. Here's another one. Nobody knows when this happened, right? Like no one knows when the guy was smoking. Like this could have been 6 months ago, could have been a few days ago. Who knows? But the point is, you had people who were like, they had a cigarette in their mouth while they were, like this guy had a cigarette in his mouth while they were on this scaffolding job. Okay, tying up the scaffolding. How crazy is that? I'm kind of speechless right now, dude. Yeah, everybody. Fire department updated that they estimated the time of the rescue can last 8 more hours. You think my mic level is too low? I think it's pretty okay, right? Okay, maybe I don't want it to pop, that's why. Is it a little bit better now? Dude, so right now there is still 279 people missing. 44 have already died and 45 severely injured from the fire. All this could have been prevented if the Hong Kong corruption wasn't so bad now with the mainland Chinese involvement. So it's a Chinese company. Some of you've already mentioned it. It is a Chinese company. So okay, so here's the connection. All right, so here's the connection. According to Cai Shen-kun, who's a China expert, the massive fire is linked to here. The contractor was Hongye Construction Engineering Corporation, a subsidiary of China Railway Constructions. China Railway Constructions is one of the premier construction companies in mainland China. So essentially, they hired a contractor that's has extensive ties to the Chinese notorious infrastructure failures, and that's the one they spent 330 million Hong Kong dollars on to have this reconstruction, this rebuild. So all this could have been prevented if there just was no corruption, but obviously that just can't happen now. Like this scene, which looks like I'm not exaggerating, it looks like a war zone in Hong Kong could have been prevented, right? This is like it literally could have been prevented uh if the Hong Kong lawmakers weren't in bed with the CCP. Like look at this. This is if you didn't know, you'd think that this was like Gaza or something, you know, or a drone strike had hit a building in like Kiev or something like that. Or I should say Kiev. That's the more correct way to say it. Okay, so I kind of lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah. So and then apparently in the aftermath, while they were managing the fire or trying to put out the fire, there was only like limited number of hoses being used to supply the water to put out the fire. At least that's according to this woman here. So she's saying that like from 3 to 5, the fire people were only using one hose, like a water hose, to extinguish the fire. I think even right now they're only using 2 of them. Um, where Chinese company? Yeah, they're Chinese companies. I hear contractors usually used usual netting instead of fireproof netting for the scaffolding. Yeah, it's to probably to save costs. There's likely a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of corruption within the 330 million dollars that they got for this project. How much of it was pocketed, like what they would do with the mainline constructions? You know, you hire a contractor. How much of that actual amount of money is being used for the renovation, and how much of it was being used for you know, buying nice dinners, buying nice luxury, you know, whatever ventures out of this project. That's very typical. Yeah, the Arunachal Pradesh thing was crazy too. I don't know if you guys saw this. We can talk about it after. But basically, there was a lady that is she has an Indian passport because you know by law it's kind of like Taiwan. Taiwanese people have Taiwan passports, right? But by her nationality, she has a Indian passport. But then when she was going through the customs, I think in China, they kept asking her why she has an Indian passport because she's Chinese, because she's from Arunachal Pradesh, which is a contested area between India and China. But then it's like they just kept saying that she's Chinese, but even though she's like not Chinese. Anyways, we can talk more about it later. Okay, so I just want to. There's something I missed about this. I'm trying to find it. Yeah. Okay. So they apparently arrested the people responsible for the construction project. Again, this is too late because we have so many people that passed away already. We have so many people that are injured. So many are still missing. Uh, the the one good thing from this is that out of all of the terrible things is that the buildings didn't collapse, which speaks volume to the old construction, which is probably more responsible than anything new that we'll get in Hong Kong, because now a lot of this mainland construction is taking over. So the worst thing that happened in all of Hong Kong's like recent history happens to 8 buildings, and of the 8, 7 of them have burned, which I think is kind of crazy. So here's an
一共有8
analysis
栋
of
大
this.
楼，楼栋之间间隔不足10 米，并且都是楼龄42年的老楼了。一共有1984个单位，住户
So
4693人。11月
there's
26
about
日
4,000 people that live here.
消防处接报，红长阁外墙棚架
And you initially saw the bamboo scaffolding burning up.
一辆泵车、一辆梯台车、一辆抢救车以及一辆救护车，携20余名消防员。
So about 20 fighters came.
香港的火警分级，只要有商住大厦火警报警，就暂时列为一级火警。
So they're just talking about here like the different levels of emergency.
根据火场环境是否属于人流较多，存有大量危险品等，决定是否需要升级。2级火警会出动5条消防水喉。
So here the difference in the levels is if they arrive first with 4 vehicles, about 20 firefighters. If they get there, they assess the situation, it's worse than it is, then they escalate, right? So now they become a secondary dispatch or level 2 dispatch, which is 5 to 15 vehicles, 50 firefighters.
5到15辆消防车以及50名消防员。若火势不受控制的蔓延，且现场冒出大量浓烟，以及有多人受困时，消防指挥官便会考虑。
So they're just talking about the different levels that they use to escalate.
50名消防员以及20到50条消防水喉，并改由消防总长指挥。若火势继续加剧，民政事务总署便会统筹多个部门协助救援。若火势加剧，预计扑救将极为困难，甚至无法扑灭，只能等待火势自然熄灭，则升至最高级别的灾难级。全港消防员需要做出随时出动的准备后轮替。回到鸿福苑的火灾，下午3点。
So about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, this fire has escalated to level 3.
02分，现场指挥官发现火势沿棚架快速向上蔓延，燃烧物掉落引发下层阳台2次起火，且有居民被困呼救。消防处直接跳过2级，将火警升为3级，并请求增援。3点34分。
So about half an hour later, the fire has shot up to the 15th story of the building, and you see all of these. So basically, they've now escalated to level 4. And then level 5.
5级火警在香港极为罕见，自1964年首次设立该警报级别以来，60多年一共只出现过44次，而从上世纪80年代算起，竹子都相当于一个微型的通道，大量的竹子组合在一起，就形成了一张立体。
So basically, the fire just kind of like got out of control really fast, and they couldn't do anything to stop it. Okay. So here's again another sort of a recap from a different person. This is also a Hong Konger. He says that tonight's fire is an absolute man-made disaster. So the Tai Po Hong Fu Court, with 8 residential blocks in the entire estate, this afternoon around 2:51, maintenance was on the way in the external walls, and basically fire broke out. Issue 1. Residents reported that when the fire alarm went off, the fire bells failed to ring. Thick smoke suddenly poured in, and multiple people couldn't escape in time. So the fire warning system's problematic. Issue number 2. Multiple netizens and residents had already posted on threads photos and videos seemingly from the maintenance scaffolding of one of the buildings on site, showing workers smoking, carelessly flicking cigarette butts. While it can't be confirmed if this happened today, some already believe this is most likely the cause of fire. After all, residents have repeatedly warned the workers not to smoke anymore. So this is the likely cause of fire is probably because of the cigarette smoke, or at least possibly. Issue number 3, the maintenance background. So this is absolutely needs to be addressed, because this is why it's a man-made disaster. In early 2024, so as we talked about this, right? The $330 million for updating the external wall. The plan covers 8 blocks and about 1984. Wait, sorry, I can't talk right now. 19,084. Wait, I literally have, oh my God, I'm having a brain meltdown right now. 1,984. Okay, 1,984. I like can't read right now. With payments divided into 6 installments per household, each bearing around 160,000 to 180,000 Hong Kong dollars, and this is already outrageous because it's essentially forcing every household to fork over the cash, not to mention that to cut costs, all 8 blocks are undergoing maintenance simultaneously, ramping up the risks. At the same time, the corporation rejected calls for a re-election and responded to some owners with legal action, while the maintenance work, of course, kicked off right away with the whole estate scaffolded up with bamboo frames and protective netting. So we already covered this part. Basically, it was not fireproof. The thing is, here's the key point. Since Hong Kong Fort is a private estate. It's not directly managed by the government, but by the incorporated owners corporation hiring a contractor, private engineering firm. Private projects don't have to stick to government standards like the fire safety codes for public works, so the bamboo scaffolding and basic flame retardant enclosures they used are indeed legal, but as I mentioned earlier, it's extremely high risk. On top of that, workers smoking and dropping embers, plus the government's massive influx of foreign labor in recent years with no regulations to monitor or control them. What if the workers on the job were foreign laborers too? Shoddy workmanship, in Hong Kong projects, getting passed up in inspection after inspection is already par for the course. To squeeze costs, the bottom run workers often get the lowest pay and inadequate training with limited oversight to boot. And this is, of course, a systemic issue, not a problem with the workers themselves. So this isn't some isolated incident. And that's actually true because most of the time, this isn't the only building or the only complex that's facing the problem. There's going to be more if they don't address this. You think it's cigarette butts? To be honest, the 200 that's still missing have a really low chance. Yeah, I'm not really optimistic about that, to be honest. What I think though we should be watching out for next is it's well, I guess let's just say as many people we can save as possible. That's really it. Scaffolding made of bamboos, is that a joke? Uh you just joined in. How did we this all started? Do we know yet? Yeah, it's probably a cigarette butt, something like that. By the way, before we move on to talk about something else, I have a uh sort of a I guess an announcement, but more like a call to action for you guys to participate if you're interested. So, about 2 weeks ago, I was approached by a group of tech experts in the United States. They're Chinese Americans, and they told me about this effort that they've been working on, which essentially is they developed the technology to be able to generate these links that are sent into China. Uh, and those links, once you click on it, allows you to instantly bypass the Chinese firewall. And so in doing so, what you essentially have done is help people who don't really know how to use a VPN or don't really want to use a VPN unrestricted access to outside of the Chinese firewall of censorship. So when I heard about this, I was like, that's a crazy thing that you're doing, and I want to get behind it. So that's why I formed a new donation campaign for this. So it's very costly, unfortunately. For every $2,000 we raise, we can give it to them, and they can generate about 100 links. But this 100 link situation allows about, I would say, tens of thousands of people in China to use those links for access. So what's happening now is that there's a lot of reasons to believe that Chinese people are essentially the way that they behave or the way that they're being fed information is not because they want to accept it, but it's because it's the only source that they have. And so there's no other alternatives. There's no fact checking. There's no alternative information, unlike what we can get in the free world. So now that this is out, what they can do is they can still listen to what's happening in China, but they can also see what's outside of China and make their own judgment. And I think that's the best way for people to wake up in China. Now, my mission, obviously, with this channel has always been about to amplify the voices of those in China who have those miseries that there's no way to, publicly speak about. And I think it's by every, you know, it's my judgment, I think, by every means necessary that we help people in China. Because I think at the end of the day, for the CCP to collapse, to topple the Chinese Communist Party, what's necessary is for people to really understand what's going on outside of China. They can't always be just listening to the poison and the state media. So if you want to support this cause, we have a link in the pinned chat section. You can help us with a donation. Like I mentioned, every $2,000, you're able to generate about 100 links. But these links are very useful because less than 1% of Chinese internet users actually know how to do VPNs, let alone, it comes with the risks. Like if you browse X or you browse Facebook and you post something, there's a chance that they can find you. But with this new technology, well, you basically it's a one click and you're through. And so there's much less reasons for them to think that you're using a VPN. Which, by the way, even though VPNs aren't technically illegal in China, because you can like get it through the institutions or colleges in the legal way. But if you're a regular person posting on foreign social media or reading the inappropriate stuff, then there's obviously chance of you getting into legal trouble. So this way avoids a lot of that. But your donation, you actually get a usage report for this too, so you know that the money is being spent on where it needs to be. So thanks, guys. If you want to donate, check out the link in the description. Okay, let's talk about this case then with Arunachal Pradesh. So this lady is dude, I honestly feel so bad for her, man. She was stuck in the Shanghai Pudong airport for 18 hours because okay, so her name, if I pronounce this incorrectly, please correct me in the chat. Pema Wangyam Dongdok or Pema Wanjum Tongdok is an Indian citizen living in the UK. So she's an Indian national living in the United Kingdoms, and she was basically going through connections from Shanghai, or sorry, I guess you would say via Shanghai to Japan. And because the passport of her birthplace is Arunachal Pradesh, which is an area like in between India and China, the Chinese customs officers questioned her repeatedly, claiming that it's actually part of China. So, but the issue is like, here's the hypocritical part of this all, right? So, like I mentioned earlier, Taiwanese people have Taiwanese passports. China claims Taiwan is part of China, but yet Taiwan is allowed to have their own passports. Why? Well, it's because Taiwan's not part of China. Same thing with Arunachal Pradesh. If she's able to get an Indian passport, what's the reason to believe that Arunachal Pradesh is not a part of India? Well, none, because she has an Indian passport. Now, the issue, obviously, now it's not like, there's going to be an all-out war over this. I think it's just another one. But China's been on a rampage, right? Like with the whole Japan thing as well. But with this one, like, what is the solution for China? Are you going to detain this person forever? Probably not. You're going to give her a hard time. As she says here, she says the experience was humiliating. Contacted the Indian embassies as she was released after 18 hours when they arrived at the airport and spoke to the authorities. Hilarious because China is like so fragile in their ego that they can't even let somebody, even though that person has an Indian passport, they're like, no, they're like, I don't know. I think it's such a small thing, but they over dramatized the entire thing. Obviously, all of their custom officers are also like brainwashed as well. But what's going on in the chat, by the way? This clever woman made things complicated for herself. Did she? How did she make this complicated for herself? So during some recent research, I came across the story of Hong Kong Garley building fire in the 1990s. Very similar, very sad. China has some amazing skyscrapers in major cities. Do those buildings get top quality material? No, tofu drag on those amazing structures. Well, if you're talking about the ancient stuff that weren't built, in the last few decades, yes, those are probably real, and they withstand the test of time. If you're talking about the anything that has been built since like the 80s, I would say there's a huge. Well, I'd be skeptical. Now, provided some of the best buildings in China are actually government buildings. So I'll give you the great example of the Wenchuan earthquake, okay? Okay, so let's look at the Wenchuan earthquake. So if you guys know anything about this, the Wenchuan earthquake was essentially where tofu drag kind of got blown publicly into the or blown into the public eye over how bad things were. So after the earthquake, which is a 8.0 earthquake magnitude, it's devastating, but pretty much most of the buildings collapsed, except for some of the government buildings. So the government buildings were the ones that you can withstand the highest level of seismic activity in China. They ensure that the structure itself can withstand the most amount or the most earthquakes, uh, number of them. It's the opposite in Japan. In Japan, the safest buildings are often school buildings or buildings that you have people in it, right? But in China, take a look at these photos. The school buildings are the ones that get destroyed first. These are some of the photos that you can see of school buildings. Okay, residential buildings less likely, because a lot of them are they were built pretty well, but the school, yeah, it was very tragic. So it's the opposite in China. So that's why, yeah, you're correct. In some of the major beautiful, towers or the main attraction of the city, right? Yeah, those buildings are definitely the strongest, or even if it's government buildings. Okay, going back to the Indian thing. Um, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson Radhir Jaswal called Miss is it Thongdok's detention arbitrary and said the issue had been taken up strongly with China. Chinese authorities still haven't been able to explain their actions, which are in violation of several conventions governing international air travel. Their actions also violate their own regulations that allow visa-free transit up to 24 hours for nationals of all countries. Yeah, rules in China are they're very malleable. If it's something that has to do with nationalism or nation's pride, well, yeah, they're gonna do anything to make it a problem. Um, so according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, this was carried out normally, according to the laws and regulations, which we all know it's not true. I live here in China and pay 30% tax as Indian, but only she will get free passport because she is from Arunachal. I don't know what that means. It's not Hong Kong anymore. It's mainland China. Yeah, you're correct. Well, so India needs to give it back to China with the Tibet card. Historically, India has never shared border with China, only with Tibet, where we India share our cultures with. Well, the issue is now though, because Tibet is really not an independent country anymore, right? If you give it to China, then it's I think obviously India won't do it. Because I think as of today, that part is a contested region. But if it's something to do with speaking for Tibet itself, unless Tibet can be independent, you really can't afford to give it back to China. Because the whole issue with Tibet is not just the region, right? It's not just the land. It's also the influence of Tibetan Buddhism, of Dalai Lama, of what China could be using it for. Because with China and the Dalai Lama especially, they use that to assert control over the region, right? Because they have the Panchen Lama, who they named. They drove out the real Panchen Lama. Their successor of the CCP appointed Panchen Lama is being used to assert control over Tibetan Buddhism, assert control over the region, to build legitimacy for the CCP in Tibet, right? And so once you actually hand over all kind of resistance or cease to resist the annexation of Arunachal Pradesh from the CCP, then you start to actually draw a lot of problems with helping the CCP to build legitimacy. 8 buildings all on fire. Yeah, they 7 of them, 7 out of the 8. What do you guys think about the aftermath of this? I'd be interested to know if you guys think these people will be punished. I'm sure they'll punish the lower levels people, right? Like, because the reality is, the contractors will probably go to jail, but they're not gonna harm the top guys. Uh, that those people are probably gonna be untouched. Yeah, but the thing is, if okay, so you visit China, you get a business visa, whatnot. She wasn't even visiting China. She was going to Japan. She was transiting in Shanghai. But to be fair, though, I think so. If you're speaking from a strict immigration perspective, the United States has the most strict uh, customs and border enforcement. Right? You can get questioned a lot for entering the United States. The most the most relaxed ones of country speaking or regional speaking, regionally speaking, that I've gone through in terms of going through the customs and border enforcement. I think it's either Taiwan or Singapore. Because when I went through Singapore, it was like there's no officers and everything is electronic. Same thing. Well, Taiwan, you go through an officer, but like they literally don't do anything to you. I guess it also depends on your passport, right? Um, but the Singaporean one was just literally I went through it and like it didn't feel like I went through. I actually went through the customs and borders like 8 times in a single week, and I never got stopped. So I think I don't know. Maybe as long as you don't have any terroristic intent or criminal intent, it's pretty good. Well, also because Singapore is like a high trust society, so you might want to see her interview with on Republic World News Channel. I don't really miss China. I mean, I grew up in the West. So I'm like more accustomed to living here. I don't know if that makes sense. Is this the one?
Years. That's the hope on which Xi Jinping has become dictator for life. He has appointed himself ruler of China till he is alive.
Wait. They got a Chinese diplomat?
You're trying to lecture India on Arunachal Pradesh.
Taiwan dates back to even
You can't do
longer,
anything
to
on
Ming
Taiwan.
Dynasty.
You can't do anything on Taiwan.
mix
Hear
the
it, you
two
can't do
issues
anything
together,
on
okay?
Taiwan. You'll keep talking about Taiwan.
But
You
want
can't
to
do
talk
anything
about
on
I
Taiwan.
can talk about Taiwan.
Yeah, you can't do anything on Taiwan. You've already compromised on Taiwan.
Wait, this is hilarious. What the heck?
Do you
Sir,
want to
what
talk about
history
Taiwan?
are you talking about? We would like to know.
Yeah, come on.
your
Yeah,
standpoint.
excellent.
What
Yeah, 1 minute.
history?
Prema, let's question him on history.
Yeah, what history? Because I have my family, my grandparents, we have all been Indian. When you say in Arunachal is part of China, I would like to know, um, do I have any voting rights in China? Do I have
Dude,
access to your public funds? Can I get pension in China? Can I get land? Would you give me land? Would you give me property in China?
dude,
Do I
she's
have any
crazy
of these?
good.
Do
What
I
the heck?
vote for the Democratic of China?
Oh my gosh.
Do I speak Chinese? Do I even eat Chinese food at my home? Do I cook in Indian food or do I cook Chinese food? Or speak to me in Chinese, sir. Speak to me in Chinese and let me answer you in Chinese and let's see if I'm Indian or Chinese. Because if history tells you that I should be Chinese, as the immigration officers have told me that you should apply for a Chinese passport because India doesn't own Arunachal Pradesh. I would like to answer. Okay, let me ask you the most basic question, sir. Uh, Arunachal Pradesh. What does Arunachal mean? Because if it's Chinese, you should know the meaning of the word.
Dude, she's so
The
good
state
at this.
that you claim to be yours. What does Arunachal mean, sir?
Well, as I said, I mean, the fact
Is that a
remains that
Chinese
the
word,
China
sir?
does not recognize the Arunachal Pradesh as a province of India. Has never been. Not the People's
So how
Republic
many
of China.
tribes are there in
Both the
Arunachal
previous government.
Pradesh? How
And
many
that's because of
sub-tribes
the
are there in
legacy of
Arunachal
this
Pradesh? Let me tell
state.
you, sir. 1 minute. Let me tell you, sir. You know nothing about history. I am from Assam.
You know nothing about history.
Okay. And Assamese as a language and Arunachali are very similar. I can speak to Prema and Arunachali right now.
That's so
Because
crazy,
they
dude.
sound similar, there are similar phonetic patterns, similar words. I can speak to Prema in Arunachali. She can speak to me in Assamese. Who are you to come in between? Who are you? Who are you? You have no right, no understanding of the region.
I-
So
This
you
is-
are nothing. You can sitting there in Hong Kong. unable to do anything about Taiwan, frustrated with your inability to stop Xi Jinping from becoming dictator for life. You're picking on Prema. Is this what a government of China is? What?
He's so mad. Dude, this is awesome. What the heck? Dude, I can't believe I watched that. That was awesome. So they're both really knowledgeable. And I can't believe she knows how to defend against the CCP nationalism. That's crazy. Very good, very good. Did you stop by anywhere else while you were in Malaysia? Dude, I could only go to Johor, and that was it because I had to spend more time. I wish I had spent longer days in Malaysia. Yeah, but we were just like in and out because yeah, we also went kind of in a bad time because there was it was like during the Malaysian National Day. So a lot of things were shut down and we didn't see a lot of people there. But honestly, Malaysia was awesome because we there was so much great food there, so many great people. But just the government is very cozy with the CCP. Dude, that was awesome, man. Like, thank you for telling me about the this interview. That's so funny. That's crazy. All right, I think it's time to end the stream. Hope you guys have if you're in the United States, hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you're not in the United States, hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll be back to live stream, maybe do some videos on Friday. Oh yeah, one thing you guys should look forward to is my next video, which is on Chinese ghost cities. So stay tuned for that. And thanks for watching tonight. See you guys. Bye-bye.